Good evening, ADMC members. This is Nancy Crossan. I'm your host tonight. Welcome to tonight's educational series titled 5 Easy Ways to Help Your Dental Clients, the Financial Planner's Perspective. And before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Vanessa Emerson. Vanessa has guided me through setting up our new format on Zoom, and she has given her time and shared her expertise with me and Andres so that we could make sure this is successful tonight. So thank you so much, Vanessa. I'm sending you love and gratitude. Thank you. So tonight, ADMC is honored to welcome Andres Romero. Andres started his financial career in 1993 and has been working closely with dental and medical professionals, women in life transitions, and their families since 2003. He specializes in coaching clients on how to maximize the success of a dental practice with systems and tools such as 401ks, planning the sale of the practice, and navigating the journey toward achieving and preserving financial goals. As a speaker, Andres shares his expertise and educates his audience on efficient ways to help dentists and their families succeed in many areas. Andres sheds light on the benefits of partnering, effective tools like 401ks, as well as the value of relationships. All the while, Andres will assist in navigating the journey toward achieving optimal financial goals. Welcome, Andres. We're excited to learn how we can help our dentist.
Great, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me. And to the ADMC members, welcome, and hopefully sharing some good information with you tonight so that you can further assist and do the great work that you do with your dental clients, wherever you may be. I'm here in Atlanta and very happy to join you. And I've been working in the dental space for about 15 years and been a member of the ADMC for 13 of those years. Very honored to be part of ADMC. This group has always been very welcoming and very helpful to me and the growth of my practice. So I thank you for all of your support that you've provided me. And today's presentation, I really just want to talk about some ways that I've discovered that I think consultants and all of us can help our dental clients. And these come from observations from working with dentists for many, many years, and some of the things that I have seen that if we work as a team, i.e. the consultants, the dental consultants, in helping our clients, we can help them become more successful and really get them to the levels that they deserve to achieve. And understand, with me being a financial planner, a personal CFO for dentists, my perspective is always we get retained by dentists typically because we get referred due to a situation typically where they need help with a retirement plan or something like that. It's all the personal financial area. But as we go and dig deep, we go into their practices. And there are things that I've observed repeatedly in going into practices. And this is where this presentation came from, was from these experiences. And here are the 5 areas, 5 easy ways that you all can help your dentists and your dental clients. And these are the topics we're going to talk about. One is to review the practice's dental specific advisor team that they have. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Having a hiring process and making that a repeatable process. We all know a practice is only as good as their team members. And I've found this to be true over the years. And a lot of times when they don't have a good team, it has to do with the process that's being used to hire. Reviewing the business financials, and what we're talking about here are the balance sheets, the profit and loss, which I'll spend a little time on, and having this in a format that's usable for the dentist, and having them look at those in coordination with their advisor team. And also looking at benchmarking their retirement plan. So it could be a 401k plan, a profit sharing plan, the planning that they're doing around setting up a retirement plan and making sure it's up to date. We've walked into many practices where that has not been the case. And then helping you take action on the information that we're going through. And I will give you some examples of some of the questions that you can ask to get your dentist to be proactive, and for you to make some observations just based on the feedback you get from the practices, from the questions that we'll be asking. talking about a dental specific team of advisors, who am I referring to? I'm referring to their accountant, their CPA. Are they dental specific? Have they worked with many dentists? Are the format in which they share information useful for the practice and for the other advisors, which also include consultants? And again, many of you who are my friends, many of you in the ADMC community who focus in different areas, whether it's management, HR, technology, systems on the clinical side, just making sure that we're aware of who all is part of that team. The attorney, whether it's setting up different corporate entities for the practice, for the real estate, for the building that they own, in the hiring process, it's important that they have a dental specific attorney. In the HIPAA compliance and all of that, I think it's integral that they have a team that works well together and making sure that they are dental specific. On the insurance lines, both for personal and commercial lines, it's important that they pick an insurance agent who works in that space and understands dentistry, and not just haphazardly does a dentist here or there, because there are specific needs that need to be addressed in dentistry, which a lot of times we as the financial planners come back to the insurance agents to kind of fine tune some of those areas. Their banker, and this is one that comes up a lot. Obviously in the beginning, if they're buying a practice or they're starting up a practice, there's going to be a bank involved. And many times, if they're not picking a dental specific banker who understands how dentistry works, how the financials work, how the collections work in a practice, they may not get approved simply because the banker may lack the expertise in working in the dental space. So picking someone who's dental specific is extremely important. I actually have a lunch appointment tomorrow with an associate in a practice who's looking at potentially buying. And we're going to have an initial conversation of who those bankers are that they need to talk to start the process as he starts to explore. And then obviously on our end, the financial planning side, making sure they have a planner, a personal CFO, a financial coach who understands dentistry and how all of that works. So that's extremely important in putting those pieces together to get the doctors to move forward in terms of their success, which is at the end result is what we all want. And what comes from making sure that their team is dental specific? Lots of things. First is return on investment. And what do I mean when I mention return on investment? Well, I mean a few things. One is, it's about helping them save money. And many times when an advisor, whether they be a CPA or a financial planner, if they're not dental specific, they're spending more time, and time usually means money. So there's time being involved if they're not a specialist in that area. So a good dental specific advisor can help a practice save money. Saving them time, especially, and we're big proponents at E2E Financial, that dentists all work and their advisors all work together. One of the first questions we ask when we're looking at being retained is, who are those advisors that they work with on the banking side, on the insurance side? And we reach out to them and we ask for permission from the dentist to say, hey, is it okay if we talk to all of them and make sure that we get information with your permission directly from them? Doctors appreciate that a lot. Instead of having to go out to the doctor or their staff for information when we can go straight to their advisors, that adds a lot of benefit to the doctor. Also confidence, that when a dentist knows that their accountant, their insurance agent, their banker, their consultant, and their financial planner are all talking to one another and working towards a common goal of helping them, it really provides a peace of mind and confidence to the doctor in working together. And really that communication to me is extremely important. And we found a lot of success on that end. And really talking about, I'll give you a quick example. We just got retained by a practice in South Carolina, and they happen to not have a dental specific accountant. And I've been looking at the financials, and it's hard to make anything out that's useful information, not only for me, but for the doctor to be able to work off of. And it's important that that information be in good order. And that kind of leads into something I'll talk about in a moment about the financials. But Moving on, the other area we encounter is when we go into a practice, once we've been engaged, is looking at the staff and what issues there are within a practice. And a lot of it has to do with team members either not being put in the right spot. Just talked to a doctor at lunchtime today where they have a great employee, but she had them in marketing and she is going to be better suited for the front office. So having a good hiring process, I think, is key to finding good people and finding the appropriate spot for them. Having a hiring process, I think, is crucial. Of the practices that we've worked with, we've only found about 10 or 15% that have a repeatable hiring process. And what does that mean? And the outline I'm giving you here is actually one that we use here at E2E Financial for hiring. We start with this process. When you put a job listing, whether it's on Dental Post, wherever a doctor may be posting the opportunities, the jobs that they have, start with some specific actions in the description for those candidates to follow. And make sure to take action. I'll give you an example. With our practice, we say we need a resume, we need a cover letter to be emailed to us or uploaded to us for us to review. If they can't follow those two basic steps, and I'll tell you 95% of people who, candidates who apply for positions don't follow instructions, then they don't move on to the next step. And the next step is have a candidate take a short assessment. Maybe it's an assessment if they're going to be working on Dentrix or EagleSoft, or it might be another form of a questionnaire, which can be easily drafted and done online. Have a questionnaire, 10, 15 questions that once they get through the first step of following the specific actions when in the job listing, that then they take an assessment online. Again, another hurdle to check to make sure that they actually know what they may claim that they have on the resume, and also allows you to see some commitment on the side of those potential candidates are going to be hired. Step 3, and I just had the conversation with the doctor a couple weeks ago about this. They are looking for a front desk person. Have a phone call with the candidate. Obviously, if they're going to be communicating with the patients as they come in, you're going to want to hear good verbal skills. And when you have that phone call with them, request references, both personal and professional references. And make sure you call those references. I probably learned more in terms of candidates in our own company by calling the references that our candidates have given us than by anything else. So it's important to call those references and have a set of questions that you want to ask. Typically, we ask very open-ended questions to allow those references to talk about the potential candidate. So I think that's extremely important. And the 5th step is to use a hiring assessment tool. We use and we recommend to our clients to use Colby Right Fit program. It is EEOC compliant, and at the end of the presentation, I'll give you my email. If you'd like more info on that, we'd be happy to forward that to you. But with that tool, what it does is the doctor first takes an assessment for the role. So it could be an office manager, it could be front desk, it could be a dental assistant, and then have your finalists take the assessment that basically asks some questions more about their style than anything else. And then Colby Right Fit gives a letter grade from A to F in terms of the best match for that role. We found that to be a very powerful tool in hiring in our dental practices and also with us here at E2E Financial. And then at that point, schedule the working interview face-to-face and then bring that person in. Yeah, if you look at the hiring process I just went over, the last step is the face-to-face. In this day and age, the face-to-face people can come across really, really good, but you really don't necessarily know them. So that's something that a process that repeatable process has worked really well in the areas that we've with the practices that we've worked with. Dental financials, what's the key? And when I'm talking about financials, I'm talking about the profit and loss statement that the accountant generates and the balance sheet. Few things that are crucial here, and we just encountered this with a practice last month. getting the information to their accountant, their CPA, in a timely fashion. So when the month is over, to send the banking information, the credit card information to the accounting practice as soon as possible. We've had a couple practices where we had to ask some questions as basic as this. We said, Dr. Smith, tell us, when do you send the info? Oh, I send the information to my accountant within a couple days. I put it in the mail and we send it over them. And I paused and I said, did you say mail? Why don't we coordinate with your accountant to allow them access to your information, or to upload it securely directly to the doctor, so that's done, to the accountant on a same-day fashion. So that's a real important part, to save a few days here and there, because the key is to get the financial information back, because that's a report card for a dental practice and for the dentist to see how he or she are tracking in the practice. Making it a dental format, and I'll go in a little more detail on what I mean there. But if the financials are in such an order that the doctor can't make heads or tails of it, then they're not really useful. And as I mentioned in this practice that just retained us, we're trying to work with their existing accountant who's not dental specific in putting the financials in a dental format, and we're struggling. So we've made recommendations to them to potentially switch accountants because the dental format and having a repeatable process for them to get that information is so important. Frequency. About 60% of the practices that we work with are doing their financials on a quarterly basis. I don't think that's frequent enough. So, because that information, once it gets to the doctor, it's already at least 2 or 3 months old. So in that case, I think it's extremely important that the doctor look at switching, doing their financials on a monthly basis. So the timing being, like right now, we're coming up on the end of July. When July is over, within the first couple of days of August, for the doctor or whoever their key staff member is to upload the information to their accountant, and the accountant within 3 to 4 business days to then come back and generate the financials for the practice. And I think it is important that the financials come from the CPA and their team, so that the information has been reviewed, not just printing from a QuickBooks printout, because that hasn't been reviewed, and sometimes there's errors in the input that's done there. And I think there's a lot of benefit that comes from the accountant that's dental specific reviewing the information and then generating their specific financials. But from a monthly standpoint, so within about 10 business days after the previous month is over, you can have those financials in hand and we can review them. And the key to generating them timely is to go over them on a timely fashion, to be able to affect what's going on in the practice, whether it's top line collections or whether it's some of the costs that they have, whether it's staff expenses or it might be supply expenses, which we'll go through some examples here. And then once you go over that information, is to take action, give the doctors feedback on here's what you need to do for the next month. So, and implement that on an ongoing basis, coordinating with, in our case, us, the financial planners, personal CFO, and the accountant as well. So what do dental specific financials look like? And we're going to go over an example here of profit and loss statements. Here's what they'll look for. One is to have columns for the monthly patient fees and to year to date. So you want to have 2 sets of columns that are on display. Columns for all expenses as a % of the patient fees, also known as collections. Breaking out those expenses, the groupings we typically like are personnel costs, direct expenses, and fixed expenses. Those are the big ones that are good groupings for us to be able to use. And then have line items for total personnel, direct and total, direct and fixed expenses. So I'll give you examples where this will make a little more sense. And then line items for what the profit or the loss is in a practice before operating expenses, and a profit or loss before the doctor gets paid or has any of his benefits that he gets in the practice. So we'll go over this here. Here's an example we just wrote up of a practice where you see here that you have the collections of the practice. And top line is collection, patient fees. Fee refunds might be any discounts that were provided for friends and family and employees. And then you've got total revenues, which is the net collections. All the percents, and this is important, I literally had this case 2 weeks ago with this practice in South Carolina. All the percents work off the top line patient fees. That's the collection number. So as you see, that's set up as 100%. So doing it on a monthly basis and also including the year to date, as we've highlighted here. And then you see the percents. As I mentioned, the percents all come off of the collection number. And grouped here, as we see, by personnel costs, and we'll go over that here, personnel costs and total personnel costs. And my consulting community knows plenty about ratios in terms of what the percent should be, but generally total payroll should be in, at least in the Southeast US, between 22 to 27% range. And if you're looking for good information, I would recommend Deborah Engelhart Nash. She puts out some great information on the financials and what the percentages should be. Direct expenses is another section that needs to be broken out in a proper way, like we've got listed here. And here you see what those direct expenses are. And it's important to see, where are they on dental supplies? Where are they on lab fees? And dental supplies typically run in the 4 to 7% range, but you have to ask some questions. Are they using CEREC? Are they using laboratories to do the bridging, the crown and bridge? So it's important to understand the practice and what kind of expenses they have, because if they're using CEREC, they may be putting the blocks that CEREC needs under the supply category, and that probably needs to be broken out because it's going to reduce lab fees. So little things like that are crucial when you go over a practice's number, and most importantly, to make sure that the accountant they're working with is doing it in a dental specific order. This is a second page, part 2 of what a profit and loss would look at. This is the fixed expenses. Advertising fees is a big area. And in that area, it's important that you understand how much they're spending on advertising. And is that advertising effective? So that's one of the things that we go over, because at the end of the day, we're trying to improve the bottom line for the doctor, or it might be the top line where they don't have enough new patients coming in. So we look at all of these numbers and see where they are to ratios, standard ratios within the dental profession, which if they're working with a dental specific financial planner and accountant, they will get that feedback from their team. I think it's also important, this is page 3, to look at, you know, where they are in terms of profit and loss before other operating expenses. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but I want to just show you the format of this, because at the end of the day, this is how the practice is doing. And in this practice, for the month, they're around 30% and about 35% year to date, which is a pretty healthy number for this practice. And then you see what the profit and loss is for the doctor. This is what ultimately is going to come to his bottom line, whether it's salary for him, a spouse, family members, etc. This number is also extremely important to know. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview there on the financials. Hopefully that's helpful. Another area, and this is a big topic, and actually an area that we're focusing in on a lot in our practice. We actually have an ad running for the Georgia Dental Association monthly magazine about benchmarking 401k plans. The Wall Street Journal came out a couple years ago talking about that the average retirement plan can probably save 50% on fees in their profit sharing retirement plan, 401k plans, because the markets have and the providers have squeezed expenses down in retirement plans. So this is something that we offer benchmarking services in this area. And what are you benchmarking for? Well, cost, as I just alluded to, is an important thing, but also for compliance. Doctors sometimes forget, if they have a retirement plan, like a 401k plan, they are a fiduciary to the plan. So they are responsible for having a process on how they chose a 401k and the underlying investments, and that there are repeatable systems for benchmarking the expenses and having a system to follow up to make sure that the 401k is still competitive. Because they're not doing the 401k just for themselves, but they're doing it for their team members. And I can tell you from experience at the Department of Labor, this is one of their focus areas, is to make sure that companies that do have 401k plans have a system in place. That doesn't mean that they necessarily have the best investments, because that's subjective, but they have a process of how they choose the investments and the investment choices that are in the 401k plan. And then also for tax savings, this is a big area that we focus on. We get most of our referrals come from CPAs, accountants, because the doctor is not maximizing the opportunity to put money into their plan and save money on taxes. In the last 3 months of the year, we're extremely busy doing these because that's when people start thinking about their tax planning. So that's a big area for us. And also increasing the doctor's retirement savings. It's a 2-for-1 benefit. So they get the benefit of saving on taxes and increasing the money that they have for their own retirement. So it's a gigantic area. So let me show you an example. Here's a before example of a list of employees, including the dentist at the top line. Let me go back. And you see how much a doctor was putting in. And there's different columns for how much each employee puts in as a deferral. So that comes from their own pay. And then there are the contributions that the doctor has to do, either mandatory, which we call in our business safe harbor contributions, and an additional profit sharing that the doctor can do if she or he cares to make an additional. So if the practice is doing well, they can add more money. And this example, we show you here what the employees are deferring and what the doctor's deferring and how much they're putting into the plan. And we always take a look at how much of the employer money, i.e. the dental practice's money, is going to the doctor. So in this example, focused on the doctor, we see that 54% of the total employer contributions are going to the doctor, saving the doctor about 15%. So, and this is a live example that we're working with right now. In the after scenario, we did a few things here. One is the doctor wasn't maximizing his 401k. He was off by a few $100s. But their spouse wasn't in the plan either, even though she's been working in the practice, doing things for the practice on an ongoing basis. And that's where coordinating with an accountant is extremely important. So one of the things we did is we added the spouse coordinating with the accountant. The accountant said, yes, she's been working in the practice, so she now earns a salary, and most of that salary gets pulled out from a deferral standpoint. So it's additional money that's going into the family's long-term retirement. The other thing we did is we showed them different formulas that will maximize more of the optional contribution to go to the doctor and the spouse potentially on an ongoing basis. So we were able to increase how much they put in to the retirement plan from 54 to 61%. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, because in future years, these numbers start accelerating, and the amount that the doctor and his family would get in terms of tax savings is growing by about 5 to 7% a year. So a lot of good can come from benchmarking the plan, as we mentioned, not only for cost compliance, but also tax savings and adding to retirement. And here's a little comparison. You could see the before and the after in terms of the first year that we're doing here, again, about increasing the employee deferrals and adding the spouse. And just doing that is improving the saving for retirement and on taxes. And then the second step is talking about increasing those funds that go to the doctor and increase their tax savings. So I've gone over the 4 important points. Now it's time for you all to help your doctors take actions. Here's some questions that we've written up and that we suggest consultants, when they're out with dentists, go out and ask these questions to their dentists. Who's your CPA and your accountant? Ask if they work with a lot of dentists. And how often do you talk? I think it's extremely important that you ask that question, because you'd be surprised how many doctors will say, well, I have an accountant and he generates my financials, but he just emails them to me and I don't review them. Well, the key is to take that information and review it. So I'm a big proponent of having the accountant and the dentist and me talk monthly to go over those numbers. How often do your CPA and financial planner work together to help you? Again, from the previous example I just gave, they need to work together so that everyone's working towards the same result of helping the doctor achieve their financial goals. That's key. Another one is, if your hygienist left today, what's your process to find a great replacement? Goes back to, what is the hiring process? And like most doctors we've encountered, they don't have a process. They just hire by emergency. How often do you review your profit and loss statement, which kind of goes back to how often do you talk to your accountant? And again, from this profit and loss, this is a question I asked of a practice I've been working with for a couple of years. And that's where we found out how slow it was for them to get the information to their accountant, and therefore the accountant getting the information back. The information tended to be a couple months old, which isn't timely. So it's kind of helping them get the information more timely and then use that information so that they are reviewing their profit and loss statement, which is what we refer to the profit and loss statement as a practice's, it's basically their scorecard. So that tells them how they're doing. And another question to ask is, can you provide me a copy of your 401k plan document? You're gonna laugh when I tell you this, but I asked the practice a few years back for their 401k statement. Plan document. I happened to be in the practice a few years back, and literally the doctor took me back to their office, opened a closet door, went to the back of the closet, pulled out a box, and in the box took out the booklet and dusted it off and said to me, is this what you mean? And it was their plan document, but they clearly had not been updating and looking at that material on a consistent basis. So it goes without saying that was a case where we were able to benchmark their plan and provide them a lot of benefit to them. When was the last time you benchmarked your 401k plan? Again, a great question to ask, and as the Wall Street Journal indicated in their article in the last, it came out in the last couple of years, most companies are not doing that, and they'd be surprised how much they can save. Hopefully those points helped you. Now go out and help your doctors take action. Pick any of those steps that you saw in the questions that I asked and help them get started. And we here at E2E Financial are here to help you. Before I go, I look forward to seeing you all in Hawaii. I'll be speaking on, I think it's Tuesday, October the 16th at 11:30, talking about financial planning for your consulting business. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And if you'd like a copy of the slides, here's my information. Please send me an email. I'm happy to forward you the slides. If you'd like some information on benchmarking, we have a specific website for benchmarking as well. I thank you very much for your time. And as always, I'm a big fan of all of you and what the ADMC does to help dentistry and the dental community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Andre. That was very informative. I learned a lot, and I look forward to maybe implementing some of the things you talked about. I love the hiring process. That was great.
Great.
Does anybody have any questions for Andre? You can put it in there. You can type your question in the Q&A box. If not, okay, thank you for attending. We look forward to seeing you in Hawaii. And if you have not registered for Hawaii, please do so or send regrets. That would be wonderful. And that was great presentation. And I look forward to our next two. The next one will be Billy Parra and Kevin Cumbus. So that's August and September. And then you will have a new director of education in October, and we'll find out who that is at our annual meeting. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much, Andres. Thank you, Vanessa, for helping us, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.